Welcome. We are so honored and so thrilled. Our next guest is one of the biggest influences in both Leah and I's career. And so we're so thrilled to have her.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
You're going to have fun with us today. We're excited to have you. Welcome, Alison. Such a pleasure.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here. And I love the title of the summit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very big on imagination combating hallucination. I just did a program on that called Thrive Your Life.
Cool.
Imagination for hallucination. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
I love it.
Great. So I'm really curious, Alison. Will and I both done a lot of your work. I started off, like many people who've done your work, doing celebrating men, satisfying women. The weekend.
Wow,
it was so great. And then continuing on to do men and sex and understanding women and the Queen course and many of your audio programs. One of the things I so loved, it was so impactful for me, was when you would have a panel of men of all different ages come at the end. And we got to submit our questions and hear from their heart at these different stages of development. Really got some gems from that. You know, I'm curious, you've had this beautiful career, you've affected so many people. What are you excited about right now? Where is your work flourishing? What's got you feeling alive?
This afternoon, I was telling my boyfriend, my playmate, my lover about what I was doing this afternoon. And he's like, oh, should I stay? Should I just sit on the couch while you do this? And I'm like, look, I get glowy enough talking about you. If you're actually sitting there, no, this is never going to work.
You won't be able to do the interview. That's a sign of a good boyfriend, lover, friend there.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I didn't know. So I got all excited about Sex Reimagined. It's because I couldn't imagine. I tell him, Dan, you would be a dream come true if I could have dreamt you.
Wow.
But I couldn't. If somebody had said, well, you're in your 60s, you're going to have the best sex of your entire life.
You wouldn't have believed. Yeah.
Don't people stop?
I can believe it.
I love that.
I can actually believe that one.
Yes.
And I was talking to Dan about it, right? He's 2 years older than me. I'm like, maybe people's sex lives wind down because they think they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe our job is to tell them no.
Yeah.
No. Imagine no self-consciousness.
Right.
Imagine wrinkles are just like
hot.
Well, they're just not anything.
Neither here nor there. Yeah.
They're irrelevant to pleasure.
Love. That's true. Wrinkles are irrelevant to pleasure. Let's make that a quote on our social.
We're gonna create a meme.
That's it. Yeah.
A quote of Alison Armstrong.
Wrinkles are
Sex and
irrelevant to pleasure. I love that.
Next level. We're going
so
next
good.
level.
What else have you discovered, Alison?
Yeah. What else are you learning at this romantic stage?
Oh my gosh. Well, this boundary thing and flying your flag. Right. And I love that you had Ian as part of the summit and the erotic blueprints. I mean, they're one of the most important breakthroughs in honoring ourselves. Like just the self-knowledge, self-acceptance, right? That this is what does it for me and this is what doesn't do it for me. And when Dan and I were introduced by one of my students, we couldn't talk for a while. I was in the middle of leading a program. And so we were texting. And one of the things that I did was send him the link. I sent him two very important links, MissJaya.com and thepowerofwhen.com, Dr. Michael Bruce's work. and which is also relevant to Sex Reimagined because it talks about the 4 different genetic types that determine the release of hormones that are in charge of sleep and focus and sociability and sex drive. And I was always trying to get Greg to have sex like at 8:00 at night.
He wasn't into it, huh?
I'm like, give it to me at 4.
He was
4 p.m.
4 p.m. He was a nothing by 8:00.
Okay.
And then he was always trying to get me to have sex at 6:00 in the morning.
Yeah, that's not a good time for most women.
Well, actually depends. It depends. This is actually genetically determined.
Okay.
So 6:00 is good for me. 6:30, I have the highest levels of melatonin. That's when I'm sleepy.
Sleeping.
Which I found out that, having sex when you're sleepy is actually really good because your mind doesn't, it's not on to commentary and do all that, it's right. Like sleepy is a great way to have sex.
I do like a little dreamy sleepy. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But so Dr. Michael Bruce's work is like really understanding this. So I sent to Dan the powerofwhen.quiz.com and missjaya.com, and he sent me back the information. Yeah, we hadn't met yet. And I knew his erotic blueprint.
Ah, there you go. Getting ahead of the game.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And younger women don't need to lead with this so much. But around my age, I was shocked at how many men and women have signed off sex.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately for men, it usually happens, they have an incident that they then call erectile dysfunction. They don't know what the dysfunction actually was. And then they get worried, right? And they get all in their heads. And then they're like, let's just be affectionate. So there were men who were signing off sex because they thought they couldn't win at it. But it's because they didn't know, like almost no one knows. We talk about this in Understanding Women, the role of desire in causing sex to start, in causing hotness, right? Like most women are turned on by a man who desires her. Well, guess what? Men are turned on by a woman who desires him. And we're so worried about being desirable instead of expressing desire. We're actually trying to get something going without stimulus.
Yeah.
Right? We got it backwards.
It's one of the things that I hear from my male students in relationship. It's one of their biggest complaints is they don't feel desired.
Mm.
Yes. And the women will have the same complaint. I don't feel desired.
Mm-hmm.
And both are like not expressing desire until it seems like the other person desires them, because then they won't get rejected.
Right.
So both are actually withholding the thing that would get the fire started.
And what both really want.
What both really want, right? And I don't want to make myself blush.
Don't do it. It's so charming. Are you kidding?
You've already blushed, Alice.
Let's do it.
Come on, blush for us.
So what if you didn't let the fires go out? Right? What if you were like our ancestors and you carry, a little burning ember, a little coal, packed carefully away from one campsite to the next? What if having that spark doesn't mean you have to have sex and therefore you have to clear your schedule and get rid of the kids and do all that stuff? You can just have the spark and you can just, blow on the spark from time to time. And when you do that, the experience is, I call it loverness. I have a lover. I have a lover whether or not I'm having sex right now.
Yeah.
Right? There's this sense of loverness. There's that staying that 20 seconds longer to kiss and mean it.
Yeah.
To bite that lip. I call it gecko. And the first time Dan kissed me, we just met, and we were so excited to meet each other, right? And exchanged all this information. We'd already decided we were going to exclusively explore this stuff. We're already in love with each other. And when I saw him, I felt like a reunion. And he kissed me, and there's this tongue in my mouth, and I'm like, tongue. And he was like, so we call it gecko. But,
I love that.
whether it's that or a little squeeze on the tush, or men are crazy about breasts, and breasts are worth being crazy about.
They're wonderful.
And men have gotten so much trouble for how they are about breasts, and so they get very tentative. And so this from having done women's sex, which we now call understanding sex and intimacy. Remember UBFs?
I don't remember UBFs.
I don't remember UBFs.
UBFs, it stands for unlimited breast fields.
Oh, UBFs.
Yes, UBFs, and there's drive-by UBFs, there's covert public UBFs.
Oh, I love the covert public UBF.
Yeah, those are super sexy.
The fires burning. Oh my gosh.
There's your lover nest going on.
Yes.
I love the covert.
Yeah, and if he's like feeling down, just flash him.
Yes.
It's
everyone likes boobs. He's better all of a sudden.
Well, what that kind of reminds me of is I'm started my period, and I'm having the day of my period where I'm really sensitive. I don't actually want my breasts to be touched. My nipples are on high alert.
Me too. I'm on the same day one.
So I love the attitude of being like, have as much as you want, whenever you want, but like today,
except for
not
today.
The day.
Look at
but I want to stay in the spirit of that. How do I stay in the spirit of that and still have this sovereignty day?
Okay, well, if it's not too much detail, is it just the nipple?
It's especially the nipple, yeah, and probably like another half an inch around the nipple. So the side boob is totally available.
Well, so you could have some fun. You could take like Band-Aids. This is the nipple fly zone.
Draw a circle around the areola. Anything outside.
Yeah, put the pasties on and go. You can look.
It's fair game.
But you can only touch around.
And you got to touch with a flat palm. No fingertips coming at my boobs today.
No pinchers. Yeah.
No.
There's one area where they really
long caress.
Now there's a good rule of boundaries, right? That's a good way to use your boundaries in that moment. One of the things I learned at some point from a teacher was boundaries are either requests or requirements. So if it's a request, it's like, hey, I really only want you to touch my breast this way on day one of my period. But if you don't, I'm still going to love you and stay with you and it'll be all good. And then a requirement would be, I really need you to only touch my breasts this way on day one of my period. And if you don't follow this requirement, at some point, it will be the undoing of this relationship.
Very good. Okay, I'm with you now. Yes. If I had it all my way, so this is something that I discovered in the last couple of years because of one of my students. Just the idea, the word need, right? What do you need? I need. The word need has a lot of charge on it. We're not supposed to need anything. Do we deserve what we need? How do I get what I need? It means I'm weak that I need anything in the first place. That's what most men think. They think it's pathetic to need anything. There's somewhere between 15 and 20% of men who, if you say you need something and you won't die without it, then you're exaggerating or outright lying. Yeah, but the need means an urgent requirement of something. That's the dictionary definition. For some reason, the word require doesn't have all that stuff loaded onto it.
Not as charged, yeah.
It's just, I require this. It's the exact same thing, but it has boundary in it. It has agreement in it. It has, this is the deal already in it. This is what's required.
Yeah.
Required,
Yeah,
that was interesting. I was just trying that out in my body. Like, I really have a hard time with heavy needs. I have a visceral sensation of not wanting to have them. I
Exactly.
prefer it if I just didn't have to have those.
Oh, no.
But require, yeah, that makes sense. There's an authority, there's a self-understanding, a self-knowledge, a self-awareness of how to love me. You know, I require this in order to flourish. Do you want to participate? Because guess what? It's kind of my role.
I'm committed to flourishing, and I don't hang out with people who don't support me in flourishing. So I require this. If you're going to be part of my life, these are my requirements. Yeah, it's been amazing. It's the other thing I've been really excited about is it was last summer. It's called Own Your Ultimatums.
Okay.
And yeah,
I like that title.
Oh, yes.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah, you're really good at these.
I know, you got the
these
best
hooks.
title.
They're so good. Your genius with language is so exciting and so fun and so clarifying.
That's why your books are so fun.
Yeah, I just have to celebrate that about you.
Yeah.
Okay, continue. The ultimatums, owning your ultimatums.
Own Your Ultimatums. Yeah, and the subtitle is A Grown-Up Conversation with Alison Armstrong about what you're living with and what you're living without.
Nice.
And it came from me having a conversation with Dan, another conversation with Dan, about a requirement that I kept trying to get over, right? This was something I needed, and I thought I shouldn't need it, and I should get over this need. And we kept having these blow-ups over it. When I would just get to the end of, I need you to have a healthy guided lifestyle. I can't watch you do this to your body. and it seemed like it was tied to Greg, right? He died suddenly of a heart attack. And but I even needed it with Greg, watching what he did to his body. And part of being human is it's my body. I can do what I want with it. Right? I reserve the right to do whatever I want to my body. Well, if we're married, your body affects every part of my life. Yeah. Wow. And so I kept trying to get over this requirement of a healthy diet and lifestyle, and I couldn't. It kept coming up, and I'd finally be so furious I'd blow my top, which is the exact worst time to say what you need or require. and yes, and finally I'm like, look, we got to talk about this. And again, and he said, that sounds like an ultimatum. And I'm like, oh no, the voice in my head, oh no, men hate ultimatums. Don't have an ultimatum. Whatever you do, don't have an ultimatum, the ideal woman, like, whoa.
Right.
You can't have an ultimatum. That's terrible. The Alison Armstrong can't have an ultimatum. I'm like, Unfortunately, I'm having a release call with my partner right now. How about I do a release on this and then I'll come back? And he said, sounds good. Okay. And so I did all this Sedona release work on having ultimatums until all the charge was gone. It just is what it is. Ultimatum means final offer.
Okay.
Well, what if we started out relationships with presenting our final offer instead of presenting our final offer when we think the person's most likely to suck it up and just go with it because they don't want to lose us?
Right. Well, that goes back to deal breakers at the early stages of your work. I mean,
right. I was just about to say, like, sex and marriage, like the correlation with what you're saying.
It's a whole thread. It turns out I've been doing it for ages and refining. And and I went back to him and I said, could we have a grown-up conversation about ultimatums? And he said, please. And so I've been having so much fun since then. Like, okay, think about, all right, so let's say you're dating and you're hoping to find that magical, wonderful person that then everything will be wonderful because they're wonderful. Doesn't work like that. But anyhow, and you have your list and you know what you turn into a terrible person if somebody doesn't like that. And so you write it all down. And then instead of waiting 3 or 6 months, when you think you really have a future, then you tell them these things, which is what most people strategize to do. What if you led with it? okay, let's talk about this stuff when we don't care what the other person thinks. Let's reveal our erotic blueprint when we don't care what they think about our blueprint, right? We're going to honor it. If you want to play and honor it too, then let's keep talking. But if you're going to make fun of me, ridicule me, shame me for what turns me on and turns me off, then the end. Let's talk about sensitive topics when we're insensitive, when we're the least sensitive to what the other person's going to think about it.
It makes so much sense, but it's so backwards from what we have been doing inside relationships for eons. And so
we're so desperate to be loved when we think we don't have love. And so there's the temptation to put the pretzel, to put ourselves back into the pretzel, to try to be this thing, to have this thing that we think we need or want or desire so much. We just want this. One of the things that you actually helped me with as I was sort of calling in, I wanted my PhD in relationship. Well, where is he? He's out there. Mm-hmm. And so, that piece in Men in Marriage around what are your values, and taking a look at like this wide range of values of like what really matters to you, what would be a good match for you. Are you finding someone attracting people that are in the same ballpark? So how does this like ultimatum piece, being able to sort of, it sounds like it takes that original work in Men in Marriage regarding like values and finding clarity so that you really know what you're looking for. And it makes it even wider. If you start to take a look even of like bringing in the blueprint model, the erotic blueprint model, yes. Where is the adventure? Where is the not that kind of adventure?
Hell no.
Yeah, and the deal breakers and the ultimatums. So I guess what I'm asking you is, how did you and Dan, where did you reach? Where did this take you, this ultimatum conversation? What happened in the agreement space?
Oh boy. Well, just for people who are trying to follow what you're bringing up.
Yeah.
What was originally called Men in Marriage is now called Understanding Love and Commitment. Okay. What is originally called Men in Sex is now called Understanding Sex and Intimacy, because usually you have one or the other. And they're part of the understanding level, right? Understanding men, understanding women, understanding sex and intimacy, understanding love and commitment. And now both men and women participate in these courses online. We used to not be able to have men there because the women would freak out about the men being there. But everybody's watching the videos on their own, right? And then we get together. I have conference calls with people in our online curriculum and I answer questions. I spend about 10 or 12 hours a month just answering questions of people in different courses and getting to hear the men's questions, right? It's like we get to have that panel, right? We get to have that panel all the time. And yes, the beginning of Own Your Ultimatums, I say, okay, I'm going to give a brief history of this conversation. No, it didn't end up being brief because I could see I had a list that Greg qualified for when I met him. And then we did in sync with the opposite sex, right? And what do you need to give? And if you're giving that, what do you need to get to keep being happy giving it? Which is really important. Relationships are not fulfilling if you don't get to give what you most need to give, right? So in sync, we talk about deal breakers and then understanding love and commitment. We start with your ideals, the perfect person, right? And then boil it down to the stand alone. I'd rather be alone than be with someone who isn't that. And then of those things that they have to be, what is there time for them to become that, right? Because there's things we need to ask for and we need to describe what it would look like and we need to appreciate it. And people need time to do that thing that you need to do. But there's things I don't have time for. I don't have time for you to become honest. And I have no history of being able to make dishonest people honest. So you better be that, right? So we call it the B list, right? So of all these deal breakers, what do they got to be? right? You got to be that.
The B list.
The B list, the BE list, which is part of your deal breakers.
I love that.
Well, and then in ultimatums, what happened, because I started working with so many singles after I became suddenly single, right? And was learning, I had to relearn all of my own work.
Yeah.
I'd done it in marriage for almost 3 decades.
Yeah. You and Greg were together for that long, 3 decades?
Almost 20 years.
Wow.
Amazing. Yeah. So I had to relearn everything in this context of being single. And
did you say horny?
I did.
You whispered. I barely heard you.
It was shocking.
Say it loud and proud.
You say it loud and proud.
It was so shocking. I didn't know what a steady diet for almost 3 decades of sex could do to a person.
Right, and then it's gone.
And then he's gone. Yeah. And I'm crying. I'm grieving. I'm in shock and
horny. Fucking horny.
Oh my God. And God, I call I was a crazy horny widow. And my son, God bless him, my son, he's almost 34. So he was almost 31 at the time. He put his arm around me. He said, and he looks down and goes, Mom. What's that word? What's the word for makes you horny? It's aphrodisiac.
Oh, aphrodisiac. Okay.
Aphrodisiac. Oh yeah.
Aphrodisiac. Yes. And then I'm sobbing on his shoulder. Greg was a stepdad. I'm like, Greg was the best lover. He's supposed to be. I miss him so much. And he's
oh my gosh, that makes me want to laugh and cry with you.
Yeah, it was awesome. And how to be good at it, right? Mom, why do boys want to have sex more than girls want to have sex? Well, because boys can reproduce all the time and girls can only reproduce about 30 hours a month. Oh. So how do you get girls to want to do it more? Be good at it. Whoa. How do you be good at it?
Good question.
Wow.
Yeah, he was 13 when he was asking me these questions.
He's very smart.
When it's time for you to have sex, I promise I'll tell you how to be good at it. So anyhow, I had to relearn everything, right? In this context. And I didn't know if I ever wanted to be in a relationship again. I thought I didn't wanted a lover. I even wrote it down. I just wanted 24 hours a month. Bring snacks, right?
I could be happy with that.
Bring strawberries and chocolate and champagne. 20 hours a month.
And be ready.
That's all I need.
I'll just have the snack level. And then I realized, from an experience I had, oh geez, I want to be in a relationship again. Shoot. Especially since in Lux, people should start there. We give away the big secret from love and commitment that, what makes relationships so difficult is there's no such thing. There's just no such thing. They don't actually exist. That's why they're so easy to change and so hard to keep going. And so interacting that way, right, with these instances of being related and who am I being and what am I speaking to and how am I listening and the 3 things we can control. And so from the very beginning, to answer your question, there's a long way around to your question, Mia, is before we ever met, Dan knew what was on my B list. You got to be this. If you're not this, let's just stop now. And then after we met, I sat down with him with the rest of the list. But I learned something really important that I teach in Owner Ultimatums, and that is, if you're not consistent with what you say you require, then they know you don't actually require it. So this thing where I kept trying to get over it was very confusing to him. And it wasn't until I committed to it that then he could interact with it as this was real to deal with. He says, we're going to break up over this. I said, yeah, we're going to have this fight every 4 to 6 weeks until you break up with me. Till I break up with you, yeah, you will break up with me. You'll get tired of this fight and you'll break up with me. He said, oh, you're right. And then he said, what else on that list will we break up over? Everything. Everything? Each and everything, all 42 items we would break up over. Whoa, we better look at this list again. And he took notes.
So valuable to have that information up front, But here's one of the things that I often will teach around these boundaries and like this B list and this other list is, well, I don't know if it totally relates, Alison, you let me know, but boundaries can shift. Like those requirements might be there early on in the relationship or 1 year, and then they might not be there the next. They're like different than rules, right? So tell me a little bit how this works with that.
So in understanding sex and intimacy, you might remember this. We call it the cover charge.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, we call it the cover charge. And it's for people to make a list of, okay, imagine I'm a restaurant and there are certain things on my menu. Well, how do you get into my restaurant? What's the cover charge? And so it's getting very clear about those boundaries. Like, no, you don't just get to hold my hand because I agreed to meet you in person. That's a huge intimacy, right? So actually think about, like, what do I need for someone to hold my hand? What do I need for someone to kiss me? What do I need before I'm going to allow someone in my home? What do I need to take my clothes off, right? So whatever you could have on your menu, like, this is what I'd like to provide sexually. What do I need in order to provide it? And I knew that I needed exclusivity. I describe it as I have one USB port. As much as I think polyamory is a beautiful ideal, I'm not built for it. And so that was the thing when Dan wanted to pursue, right? Because I asked him, when did you know this could be something really serious? He said, probably about the third hour of us talking on the phone. And most men will say in about 3 minutes or in about 3 seconds. They know what it can be, right? 30 seconds, they know what this could be. And so he wanted to pursue it. And I'm like, okay, if we're going to explore this, because that's what we committed to, an exclusive exploration. It has to be exclusive. I can't be sexual with somebody who's being sexual with other people. So that's what we originally agreed to. And then as, he went and did the Miss Jaya's quiz, right? And he sent me his results. He took a screenshot and he sent it to me. And my reaction was, you're a playground. And then because I knew the quiz, right? I knew the quiz and what kinds of things would lead to certain kinds of results. I'm like, okay, so that section that got you that percentage, you got to say yes when there's some things in that list you would say no to. So what were your yeses, right? Like, so I started inquiring into the results of the erotic blueprint so that we could talk about it ahead of time and where he wanted to go, what was like a cliff to me. There are things that are just a cliff, right? Mm-hmm. And so in answer to your question, Willa, we, from the very beginning, would interact with all different kinds of needs from, okay, he would say something like, wouldn't it be fun to, right? And he's way more okay with sex and sexuality than I was at the time. And I'd be like, he's like, wouldn't it be fun too? And I'm like, do you need that? I don't know why. I don't know that I'll ever go there. Can you imagine the rest of your life without that? Do you need it? And God bless him, because there wasn't any condemnation of what he was proposing. He just said, tell the truth. there are things that he would say. One thing he said, I don't know.
True answer.
I don't know.
Authentic.
I said, okay, well, then let's keep checking in on that. If you don't know, let's keep checking in. How are we doing with this? If we did what we're doing now for the rest of your life, would you be good with that? Right. And then there are other things that I was like, I'm never going to be that person. So if you need that, then when you need that, I won't be enough, which means I'm already not enough. And I'm not going to live like that. So which is it? And God bless him. He was beautiful. He said, you're enough and you deserve to be enough.
Aww.
I don't need that. And then we just took it off the table.
See, isn't that so incredible? That's such a great story and depiction of like the things that we think we need. Sometimes we actually don't when we are fulfilled on a more soulful or heart level.
Yeah. And what we've, ever since I started interviewing men in 1991, what men have said about sex is, women are led to believe that men are going to marry the best sex they ever had. And it's not true.
Not true.
They're not connected. And what, one of the things that makes a woman the right person for a man to marry is that in his perception, there's enough communication, there's enough spontaneity, there's enough experimentation that he thinks, yeah, we can work this out. You could be the only person I have sex with for the rest of my life, and we're still going to have fun. Because that's how it's been. They operate based on how has it been, right? So if you're not open to each other from the very beginning, they're going to take that at face value that you never will be open. So this will never work. And then the flip side of that is we have to make sure we're not false advertising. Can't pretend to be open to something that we know that's never going to work for me. That won't ever be negotiable. At least as far as I can see, it won't ever be. So we shouldn't bet on that it will be.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So powerful.
I got one for you.
Okay, but can I finish one thing about the deal breakers and the
yes.
So over the course of all these years, we had another layer in regards to requirements, and that's that if you think about be, like what you need a person to be, right? In love and commitment, I teach you how you can inspire someone to be, right? If you need someone to be affectionate, then just be playful. They virtually can't help but be affectionate around a playful person. But what if you need someone to be something no matter how you are? That when you're the worst version of yourself, you can still count on them to be that way. Yeah, like they're countable for generating being that way, no matter if you're having the worst day you ever had. So when you list the qualities that way, they exist very differently. And then if you think of be and then behaviors. So there's the qualities you need a person to be, and then you need those qualities mapped onto your life. So if they're being generous, then go ahead and describe what would generous look like with your family, with your children, if you're bringing them into the relationship, with your body, right? I put something on my list that never occurred to me before. In 1991, I had on my list, loves my body. In 2019, loves my body and lets me love theirs.
Good distinction.
I didn't even know to think that at the time.
Right.
I didn't know you could be with someone who loves your body, but isn't really inhabiting their own, right? Greg was not keen on his body. He was really glad to get rid of it. Seriously, I felt his joy, his literal exhilaration to be free. He was like, that kind of freaks people out, that someone would die and you would feel their joy. But I did for a very, very long time. And Dan knows this because I've talked to him about it. Like I have 19 things on the B list and 23 things on the behaviors list. And I've told him, it's probably going to take at least 2 more years before all these things on this list are verified, because the circumstances haven't arrived yet.
Right. Gotta
And
have the platform.
yeah, so he and I have not committed to each other in that way that people are like, I don't know, till death do us part, or we're in it to win it, or no, we have a deal. We get to keep each other for as long as we're giving each other what we need. And that's out of profound love. Like, I'm not going to torture him to stay with me when I can't give him what he needs and he can't give me what I need. That's mean. And people do it all the time. It's most people's marriages.
It's most relationships. Yeah.
Okay. You had another question.
Okay. So I'm imagining that you've got more and more couples coming to your platform and exploring your work, where it was such a female-oriented audience when I went through your work, and now it's expanding, and it seems so exciting. It makes me want to bring my husband along and revisit all of this material. Like, I want to see his list.
Yes.
I want to explore him deeper.
Yes.
I would love to have a whole new conversation with this material and get to know his heart to the next level due to this type of inquiry. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming you probably have an image of a couple who started to do this work when they were already quite far along in their coupleness. Yes. They're starting to discover all of this. Yes. Like, who were they when they came in? And then they do the work, and then who do they become as a result of this unfolding? Do you have a before and after story of some students that you'd be able to share? Whether it turned into we stayed together and went deeper, or we uncoupled as a result. I'm kind of curious, because I think both could be a success story.
Well, we definitely have them. What you were describing initially, what I call from good to great, that's my favorite, right? To interact at from good to great, from we're awesome to exquisite, right? Exquisite means carefully chosen, right? So everything you're doing, you're being, you're spending your energy on, carefully chosen. It's all designed. Right? That level of engineering. I'm an engineer, right? So that I get to do with Dan. There are others who are engaged in that are huge inspiration for me. Unfortunately, most people aren't motivated when things are good, like set it and forget it. This works. Let's pay attention to what's not working. And since human instincts, literally, I wish I was exaggerating, we're doomed, right? If we're not wide awake to the impulses, to the compulsions, to the drives, to the prohibitions, to even speak up and say, I need something, or even, I call it don't ask, don't tell. Don't say, honey, what do you need? Honey, if you had it all your way, what would we do this weekend, right? Don't ask that, right? And don't say that. Well, if I had it all my way, we would do it like this, right? The prohibition against asking and telling, it's human. It's not just male and female. So to overcome that, it needs to be really safe. But we're so quick to judge what somebody asks for, right? And then it seems like their needs are obstacles to our needs. And it's nobody's fault, actually, that most relationships just turn to crap. And so I wish the good to great. We have way more stories of an amazing people who are dedicated to supporting our work because our work saved their marriage. And those are beautiful, right? That they literally were on, it was do this or go to the divorce lawyer. And I think one of my favorites are people who are just starting out. I have something now called the Smart Singles Intensive, where I get to interact with, have special classrooms, with the people in the intensive, and customize the courses for them, do this next, then that. Okay, do this to the 5th session and then switch over to this one and then go back. And it's really fun. And so the people in the intensives, as they're getting uber clear, like so clear about who they are and what a person would need to be for them to be better off than being single, like single stops being a predicament to escape. Then I get to interact with them as they're interacting with the person who showed up inside that clarity. And okay, Willow, you used the F word before. So
you can use it too.
So there was one of my students who was working on her list, and she didn't want to work on it anymore. She's like, this seems hopeless. This seems like looking for a needle in a haystack. And I thought about, how do you find a needle in a haystack? and the answer was right there. I said, you know how to find a needle in a haystack? And she said, how? I said, get a big fucking magnet.
Oh my God. I love that so much. That's exactly what it is. It's a big fucking magnet.
But here's the thing. When you have clarity about who you are and you represent yourself as who you are early and often, which is the most attractive thing a woman can do to a man, like they're just blown away by it, right? You don't just have a magnet, you become the magnet.
You are the magnet.
You are. Your clarity, your loyalty to yourself, the representation that it's
you're so irresistible when you're just yourself. It is like magic sauce. It is so good.
And everybody wants
it could be that easy.
It's that easy. And everybody wants to be special and unique. Well, then be yourself. There's only one of you.
That's right. You just be authentic, and the right one will stick with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's how Dan and I ended up. It'll be 2 years in October.
Congratulations. It's exciting.
It's really exciting. And one of the things that's really fun about it is we so support each other. We so take care of each other. This morning, he was like, okay, how can I support you this week? And we don't live together. I literally live in his backyard.
You do, like in a studio in the backyard.
They called it the guest. It was the guest house.
Yes,
and Dan named it Harmony. So I live in Harmony.
Oh, you live in Harmony.
I live in Harmony, and he comes and visits me in Harmony. Oh. And we have this thing every day called now I'm gonna blush. So I was not getting enough attention. Right? He's got 3 kids. He's got a whole life. He's got, I call him the Lord of the Manor. He's got 35 acres in the mountains, right? And I was suffering from lack of attention, and I was turning into a terrible person. And he said, okay, I have an idea. You pick a time every day and we'll just lie down.
Sweet.
Lay down? Yeah, we'll just lie down. We'll just lie down. We'll hold each other. We can talk if we want. We can nap. We can get frisky if we want, but we're just going to start with that every day. You pick the time because your schedule's more restricted than mine. And then he gets this little smile because he hasn't had to work in 30 years. And so he has all this free time, right? Well, now we have jokes about, there's a lot of words that can go before down. There's the lie down, right? There's something called the dirty down. It's not what you think, though. The dirty down is when I take the sheet out and I put it over the bedspread because we've just come in from feeding the horses.
You don't want to get the bedspread dirty. Do the dirty down.
We don't want to take a shower. We just want to hold each other, but we're dirty, right? I'm a country girl. I've been on my tractor. I got manure, right? So we got a dirty down. There's a go down. There's
a go down. What's now? Now that sounds dirty.
Yeah, you can make up your own downs.
Yeah, you can make it all up to interpretation.
But he made this up back in January, and it has transformed life.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's that thing that we have to interact with. We have to interact with enough, right? There's ideals, and then there's what is enough, right? And so we have, on Wednesdays, we have a day date. in the middle of my work week, we just carve out this period of time that we spend with each other. We might do chores. Right? We're often feeding hay to the horse.
But you both love that. And it's like, it's actually good for your nervous system to be with the horse.
We love being together. And but it's just enough. So there's 3 hours on Wednesdays, and then somewhere between like maybe 20 minutes or an hour every day, like just depending on when we can. And the thing that, I mean, you guys know this, I have this huge house, right? At this huge house 200 miles from here. And I was becoming a smaller person inside of this huge house. And part of it was just being female and being afraid, right? Living in the country, there's a mountain lion in the canyon, big guy, right? And I didn't realize how much of my energy was spent just monitoring my safety. And there's something about living in his backyard in this circle of protection, right? He's so committed to me being safe and happy, right? And so I spent a lot of time alone, which I didn't know that I loved being alone. I couldn't own that, actually. I was 61 years old when I owned. I love being alone.
It's a really nice thing. I'm a big fan myself.
I love being alone. And so we don't live together because we both love being alone. And he's 90 steps away. He's on the other side of the pool in the middle of this aspen forest, right?
Aww.
And and there's bears and moose. The bear showed up, tried to get in my kitchen.
Oh my goodness.
But we're always in each other's space by invitation. Always. Never, oh, you're here. I was hoping to have the living room to myself.
This is so reminding me of our interview yesterday where we talked about gratitude and appreciation. And looking at appreciation as an investment that appreciates. It doubles up. It expands. When we really appreciate all parts of our life, we can really see how we can make certain things grow, or if we want, we can put our attention to having them grow in a different direction. And it just really reminds me of this place in your life of having this amazing, the first relationship and you got these beautiful kids, and then the next relationship, and that is precious. It's such a beautiful love story. We've created so many examples that we all got to savor along the way as you brought more and more information into our lives. And now you're in this next stage, right, where you get to be like sexually flourishing in your 60s, all new rules. Nothing has to be defined the way we sort of look at what we think we want when we're thinking about marriage or kids or families or career, and we're kind of doing that trajectory, right? And then there's this other part of our lives. You're getting to appreciate what's possible and then share that next level with all of us. I think it's magnificent. I think you really got a special, magical life. It just keeps bringing you gifts. And I can tell that's because it's where you put your attention. You look for what's right and you celebrate it.
Yeah, it's so beautiful the way your work has, come from inside of yourself and from your own experiences, and also from all the research that you've done, and just like, really tuning in and listening to soul, to human beings, to like what's really going on with people and how they interact with each other, understand each other or don't understand each other. How can we shed more light on what it means to be in an intimate relationship with another person? So powerful.
Yeah, and it does it's not stage specific. Like what you're experiencing now is so applicable to any stage in our life.
Exactly.
And yet it can be very applicable to a specific season in our life too. I just love that it can weave, and it's available to all of us no matter where we're at,
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay for you and yay for us.
Yes. Any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are just really feeling lost or confused when it comes to love, relationships, sexuality, intimacy?
Oh gosh.
Just sum it up for us in a word.
Just sum it all up. Most men can't think of anything funner than sex. So if you're not having fun, you might be missing the point from their world. What would make it fun? Everything we're doing to get men to love us is silly because they're born loving us. And we mostly get in the way of it. And fly your freaky flag, whatever your freaky flag is. You channel, or you're edgy or whatever you think they're going to break up with you about, advertise it from the very beginning. So they'll just go away without you ever knowing it. You won't feel the rejection. They just went away. Everybody has fleshy parts. That was a lesson from Dan.
Fleshy. Everyone has. I thought you said flashy. I'm like, no, yes.
Fleshy.
Fly that freak flag and flash away.
Flash away. Flash away. Yeah, everybody has fleshy parts. And, just by definition, I don't think there's the right person. I think there are a right persons. But a right person for you, you're not going to have to conceal yourself or change yourself for. So the way to find out who's a right person for you is don't conceal yourself and don't change yourself. Because if you do that, then you're going to keep people who aren't right for you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well done. Yes, that was a synopsis. That was perfect. I love that. Oh,
there's no scarcity.
There's no scarcity.
Yeah. Thank you for saying
that. Thank you.
Yeah, we need to be reminded of that.
Yeah, you gotta watch that one.
Yeah, there's so much love and so much abundance available.
Yeah. It has been such a pleasure, Alison. So wonderful to reconnect with you, to just sit with you in the flesh and just hear.
Enchanté.
We're going to say. All the fun. And thank you for sharing with us vulnerably about your own experience. It's a pleasure to be with you. We're honored.
Yeah. I can't wait to go check out the Lux program.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. Oh my gosh. It's so fast. It's less than 8 hours of videos. And like the whole world occurs differently. Yeah.
Can't say no to that.
Yeah. Sign me up. We're in. Thank you. Appreciate your time today. Love, love, love.
Sure, what you're doing.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
Welcome back. It is Sex Reimagined, Leah Piper and
Dr. Willow Brown. And we just interviewed one of our sheroes.
Yes.
We had so much fun. It was so great. Alison Armstrong, just what an incredible gift to the world of romantic relationships and how to have a successful one, how to have fun in one. As Leah puts it, having a mastery over disastery inside of your relationship.
Yeah, let's be a mastery couple, people. I think she has given me so many gems over the years, and this interview really reminded me. Same one with Sherry Winston. They both reminded me how much I have integrated their teachings into how I see the world and how I experience my deepest desires to have a fulfilling love life. And I just have had their work has had such a profound impact on me. With Alison, I remember her teaching this whole piece about, kind of coming of age. And I think as young girls, we get the awareness somehow that we are these attractive beings that get attention. I remember being like 11, 12, 13. And this whole idea around wanting attention from boys and dressing the way I thought you had to dress in order to get that attention. So I remember my first push-up bra. I remember being obsessed with makeup. I remember like frantically trying to do this thing that would get boys to like me. I didn't know that I was settling. You know, she has this whole concept that sexual attraction, all it means is that someone wants to get their body next to your body and do yummy things. But if you really want love, it's about being charming and enchanting. And when someone is charmed and enchanted with you, yes, they're sexually attracted to you, but they also feel compelled to want to make you laugh, to want to protect you, to want to make you happy. And that struck me, you know, so hardcore, because my whole life I thought in order to get love, I had to be sexually attractive. And I didn't know that what I really wanted was what I wanted was love, and that the key to love was just being yourself. And so although we didn't talk about that directly, there were some indirect pieces of the conversation that kept on bringing that into my mind and heart, and how much I have thought over the years that I wish someone would have told my teenage self, who desperately wanted to be liked and loved and thought I had to be somebody else in order to get it. And so I spent a lot of time not being myself, not knowing how to be myself, just wanting to be what I thought someone would love, which never got me love.
Yeah.
How painful that has been over the years.
Yeah, I think so many of us, I certainly can relate to that, of just like taking a very long time to figure out what was authentic and what was true, you know, and just having had to play out a certain mold or it's got to look a certain way or be a certain style in order to be of value, in order to be lovable. So, you know, it was so cool to sit with Alison and listen to her and where her work is at now. Cause I know you and I have dug into her work many, many years ago. And as you said, it's definitely colored the way that our work has been offered to the world. And so it was great to kind of see where her work has evolved and developed into, and how it reminded us of that early work that she did. So really, she's just been following this thread and fine tuning this thread. And, you know, one of the things I really loved that she talked about during this interview was the B list. Yeah. So you think of the B list, you're like, well, it's not the A list, so it must be on the B list, but it's the B list. So it's like, what do you need your partner to be? Who do you want to be with? Who do you want to be in relationship? And she's got a whole thing about how she gets that B list out of people. But it was just cool to learn about it, to hear about it, and how it also relates to behaviors. The B list relates to behaviors within the relationship, because a lot of her earlier work was about, like, you know, basically opening women's eyes to the fact that men are not women. They are not misbehaving women, right? They are a totally different species, a totally different brain chemistry, just completely different. You know, she's a big fan of Luann Brezendine's work as well, the male brain and the female brain. So if you haven't read those books, highly recommend those too, because they just couldn't be more different all throughout developmental stages. And so all of her work is about understanding each other. She's probably a 4 on the Enneagram, like you and I are. Yeah.
She probably is. Yeah. And it's one of the things I love about her style of thinking is how she bothers looking up the definitions of words and how powerful that is. Yeah. That has always struck me about her work. I love that she brings the definition of language, because there's power to the psycholinguistics of our language and the words that we choose to use. And when you use a word and you didn't even know just like the specific meaning, you got it in the ballpark. But when you get down to the meaning, wow, does it expand in profundity? Right. And how you use it, or how you then will intend to use it in the future. Yeah.
So powerful. She's really just a smart woman. You know, she's a scholar of relationships, just curious. Yeah. And just developing and creating. And what is she, 61 now? And she is in the hottest time of her,
Oh my
her
God.
romantic life. And she shared a lot on this
She's
interview around that. Was so
adorable.
sweet. So
Oh
cute.
my God. Like, and she's so lit up, so bright, so shiny, so radiant. You know, I think that's what I really loved about who she gets to be as a permissionist, you know, like, because we need more voices that are her age. I can't tell you how many friends and clients I have that start to feel totally invisible.
Absolutely.
Like the world is just leaving them behind, whether it's technology, whether it's sex, whether it's relationships and dating. And it just crushes my little soul, because these are important people in my world and life. And I love what she's standing for, and that she's not done. And didn't you get the feeling like she's still
she's just getting started?
And it's like, wow, I want that kind of energy.
Yeah.
And you know what else is cool about the progression of her work is she's completely retitled everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that takes a lot of guts. I mean, here you've built this empire with a certain languaging and a very specific demographic of who your audience is.
Yep.
And she was mutable enough. And there's a specific word. It'll come to me if it needs to, but there's something about her willingness to be influenced by culture. And in so doing, not only has most of her work is now online versus live. It was always live when I started. It's also way more inclusive. She's moving away from so many gender specifics and really coming around to humanity.
Yeah.
And I think there's quite a bit of a learning curve there. It's been true for me. I can only imagine how much harder it is for people of an older generation to be able to be that adaptable. And I was very impressed and encouraged by her adaptability. It really gave me fuel and energy to want to get better and better at that.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. Yeah. She really is a queen of an example in this industry, and enjoy her interview. Let us know what you learn from it. Let us know what you get from it. And you probably are going to want to take notes on this one, because there's such pearls of wisdom threaded throughout it. So
yeah, type some of your highlights into the comments, because I'm assuming if you've gotten this far, you've probably watched or listened to the episode. So your feedback's really important to us. We want this not to just be a conversation between Willow and I, but that it's a conversation for all of us, because we're here to grow and expand and to understand each other. So your part in the conversation is super valuable.
it's true. We want to hear what you got to say, what's going on for you. And even if you're like, I really enjoyed it, I don't know what else to say, we want to hear that too.
Yeah. And I also I feel like I never met Greg. I've never even seen a picture of Greg.
I know, but don't you feel like you know him?
Yes. Like listening to her CDs over the years and the stories of her work. I mean, you just feel like you know the two of them. And I hadn't known that he had passed away. And so
I didn't either.
I thought the pieces that she said around grief really dropped me into my heart in a sweet way. And
yeah.
And I'm so happy she's got this new guy too, and how much she's learning. And then in her interest in the erotic blueprints. I mean,
yeah, it was so good.
You go,
so
queen.
Enjoy it. We'll see you on the other side.
Ciao.
Thanks for tuning in. If the hosts seem to know what they were talking about, that's because they do. Leah Piper is a tantric sex master coach and a positive psychology facilitator. Dr. Willow Brown is both a Chinese and functional medicine doctor and a Taoist sexology teacher. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.